The Rancor monster's hungry again. Let's feed him. Don't do it!
Luke Skywalker, Gamorrean Guard, new Rancor monster and Rancor Keeper action figures, each sold separately.
You'll regret this. Grrr! Wait till he gets his claws into a Jedi Knight.
Whoa, some jaws. This is my only chance.
He's wounded. We better get in there. Grrr!
You'll never get out alive, Gamorrean Guard.
New Rancor monster, action figures, each sold separately, from Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi collection.
In this review, I'll be taking a look at the vintage Star Wars Rancor monster figure. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. This Rancor figure was released in 1984, a year after when Return of the Jedi was released. Just as with all the other vintage Star Wars figures, the packaging for Rancor is pretty awesome. There are several pictures showcasing what this figure is capable of doing. A little backstory on Rancor. This Rancor is based on its appearance in Return of the Jedi. In the film, the Rancor is Jabba the Hutt's pet. It was kept beneath a trapdoor in his chamber at his palace. Jabba frequently used his Rancor as an amusing form of execution. Unfortunately, the failed execution of Luke Skywalker led to the Rancor's death. Now let's take a look at one of my favorite creatures in all Star Wars. This Rancor figure was the largest creature made in the vintage Star Wars toy line. The figure was made using a brown plastic, which is fine since the creature was brown in the film. The only added paint details are in the eyes and the teeth. Sadly, since this is a figure I played with a lot as a child, the paint on the teeth has rubbed off some. Looking at the head straight on, there is a noticeable seam line going down the center, where the body is actually two pieces glued together. While not looking 100% movie accurate, I do believe this Rancor is pretty close to the design from the film. While the figure might be lacking in the paint department, it definitely doesn't when it comes to sculpting. The sculpting, in my opinion, is very well done, especially for a figure that came out in 1984. Just look at all the lines and wrinkles in the skin that are sculpted. They did an amazing job giving this figure added realism. Moving up the head, they even sculpted his ears. The top of the head even has several large spikes, which actually carry over into the arms. There even appears to be layers of tougher skin or scales on the upper arms. The arms continue the sculpted lines and wrinkles in the skin as the body. The forearms contain a few more smaller spikes. Here we come to the awesome looking hands of the Rancor. As a fan of creatures and monsters, I think the Rancor hands are a very neat looking design. The hands contain long, sharp looking claws. To know, being a toy, the claws aren't actually sharp, they just have the appearance. The only thing I wish when it comes to the figure is that they would have painted the claws. But paint aside, I do like how they turned out. Another thing I like about the hands are that they are large enough to hold onto a normal sized figure. That's great for when the Rancor is about to feast on a snack. Looking at the underside of the figure, you even get another look at that seam line I mentioned earlier. The torso and stomach continue the line sculpting, but it's kind of plain besides that. Moving down to the legs, they are more in a fixed stance position. The legs are able to move, but getting him to stand requires the legs to be in this position, otherwise he will fall right over. While the hands contain large fingers, the feet are the exact opposite, as they contain short stubby toes. The Rancor feet resemble that of, say, an elephant's foot. While I absolutely love the design of the Rancor, I must say this large menacing monster having little stubby feet is kind of odd. Turning the figure around, you can see the small tail on the Rancor. Running up the tail and onto the back of the Rancor are armor-like plating. The sculpting is yet again nicely done, but due to no added paint detail, does just kind of blend in with the rest of the skin if you're not looking closely at it. Very well hidden inside one of the large spikes from the back is a lever. More on this momentarily. There is a row of large spikes running up the center of the back. Now let's take a look at the articulation on this monstrous figure. The arms are able to go outwards as well as move forwards and backwards. The hands can rotate a full 360 degrees. The legs can move forwards and backwards, but as I mentioned earlier, the figure can only stand in one stance. And finally, by pressing the lever on the back of the figure, it in turn makes the mouth open wider. Looking inside the mouth, you can see how hollow the inside of the figure is. The good thing about being able to open the mouth is that you can get the figure to appear as if he is eating people. A normal size figure won't be able to be fully swallowed, but you can get about half the body in its mouth. Now let's compare the Rancor monster to some other Star Wars figures. First up are two normal size figures, that being Luke Skywalker and a Gamorrean guard. Comparing the Rancor to some other creatures, first is a Dewback. Here he is next to a Tauntaun. And finally alongside Jabba the Hutt. The one thing that's common is how the Rancor towers over every other figure in the line. So that is my review of the vintage Star Wars Rancor monster. I love this figure, and it is one of the best figures in the vintage toy line in my opinion. I think the sculpting more than makes up for the lack of paint detail. This figure has always been a favorite of mine, and I highly recommend it. Once again, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as well as click on the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Hit that like button and leave me a comment. Also, follow me on social media, links are in the description below. Thanks for watching.